Lord, I pray that you'll come, Lord, and just anoint him right now. That, Father, he will be a blessing to us. Oh, Father, just come and anoint these words. Put in the things you would say, Lord, and take out the things you would take out. We only want to hear you speak through them. We only want to see the name of Jesus glorified in us. God, we ask it in your precious name.
Amen. Amen. Right. Morning, folks.
Morning.
Okay. So, I've known Huey for about 40 years, there or thereabouts. And first met him at the, remember the St. Helens show that used to have every year? And don't know the audience here, but do anyone know what a flash dance is? Yeah? Flash dance? You've seen them, yeah? Okay, so it's where a group of people all get together and they pretend they're just strange, and all of a sudden music will start playing and they're all sorts of stuff. Well, actually, that's where I met Hugh. So we were at this show and they were doing what was a sort of a prelude to the flash dance, and they were doing, I haven't got the money for the mortgage on the cow. And when you're trying to work from, where's the spirituality in that? Anyway, and there was no spirituality. It was just a group of people making a noise, making a nice noise, a nice sound to draw the people in to have a conversation about the Lord. So a couple of good things today is, one, I'm not going to tell you any jokes. Okay, because they will be similar to Huey's jokes. Okay? So no jokes. I'll probably be about 20-25 minutes, which is a short amount of time to put in the best part. I think you and I, Rose, are similar age. I'm 63, and just working it from the maths to what you were saying in your prayer. So I've got a lot of life to get into a 20 minute word. So Paul talks about a more excellent way. Okay, what a more excellent way is, and in Corinthians 12 and 31 he talks about this more excellent way. It's at the very end of chapter 12, and then he goes on to explain what that more excellent way is, and that more excellent way is love, and love is something really in short supply of in the world that we live in today, and I'm glad Joshua has mentioned, because there's Joshua in here. I'm glad choices were mentioned, because choices in it, because it's all about choices. So now we all make choices every single day of our lives. Pretty much every few minutes we make choices. Some of them are good choices, some of them are bad choices. And I think one of the things that I've experienced in my life, and when I've talked to people who come along and start hearing about Jesus, about God, about love, but no one's as bad as me. How many times have you heard people say, God can't forgive me of my sin because I'm really, really bad. You don't know how bad I am. Well, probably true. I don't know how bad you are. But God does. And unfortunately, we have a God who's really, really good at forgiving people who make really, really stupid mistakes. And one thing I like about the Old Testament, I mean, people talk about the New Testament, about the love and forgiveness, and it's great. And people don't like the Old Testament because the Old Testament can be pretty brutal, but it is brutally honest. And what I love about the Old Testament is the honesty, where men of God have made ridiculously stupid choices. Ridiculous. I mean, I've made some bad choices. Well, I'm afraid David is up here, because King David not only had an affair with Bathsheba, he thought a great idea, a great choice. Yeah, I know, yeah. So this is Gabriella, and she'll tell me when I'm going too long. So David's thought, when he'd slept with a married woman, which he just didn't need to do, he was the king. You know, the king had all authority. When he slept, and why he was there in the spring and all this, that's another sermon. But why he thought, I tell you what, I've made a right stupid error here. I've made a really bad choice. So what I'll do, to cover it up, and we know the story, tried to get her husband back from the battlefield, that didn't work because he was an honourable man, a man of integrity, I'll kill him. That's a really good choice. That's what I'll do. That'll make things right. You know, that's not two wrongs making a right of it. So he made really bad choice. But later, when he was challenged by Nathan, he made a really good choice. And he cried unto the Lord. So we all make bad choices and good choices. Joshua's choice was, for me and my family, for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. And that was a really good choice. Okay. Now, choices. Now, other people can shape our lives and by their choices. So, my mother shaped my life by her choices. And my mother was an interesting lady. Okay. And so the environment I was brought up in was an interesting environment. So my mother got pregnant at 15. Now, as a Catholic lady or a Catholic family in 1959, not a great choice. Not a great choice. And of course, she was thrown out. Now, they were lovely them days, because when they threw them out, they didn't really throw them out. They went off to the grandparents or an auntie somewhere, you know, so they didn't really throw them, but that's what they would say in church. Oh yeah, she got pregnant, I threw her out, you know what I mean? It's like, okay. And it wasn't that harsh. So, okay, so she got pregnant and had me at just 16. Okay, and that was in Manchester. I'm a Manchester lad, although I left Manchester in 1977 to move to Liverpool, and I've been there ever since in that area. So that was that choice. Then she made a really good choice. She married a chap called David Lawson, who adopted me, and that's where my name comes from. And he was a really good guy, good choice. Unfortunately, at the age of about 26, she thought that wasn't a good choice, because life was a bit boring, and she'd missed her teenage years. So she then chose to go and be a partner of a black gangster. Now, the fact he was black is irrelevant, but that's what he was. Not a great choice for little old me at 10 years of age. So I then get brought up, I get taken from this really stable home to a gangster's house. And as you would expect, because it's not like on TV, living in the gangster's house, it is just not. And you know, those who maybe known people or have been in that place, it's not a great life. One minute there's lots of money because he's robbed the post office or whatever. Next minute there's no money because he's locked up again, because he was a rubbish gangster. He was just not good at what he was what he chose to do. He was just rubbish. I spent more time in, I can't remember what it was now, but the place in Warrington, the Remand Centre and Walton and Strangeways and all the rest of it, visiting. So not a great choice for Malcolm Lawson, but that was the environment I was brought up in, and believe me, I carried on. So I learned to steal and lie and cheat and all of the things that you would expect. Drinking family, as most families were in the 60s. Everybody smoked, you know, the flipping cat and dog smoked, everybody smoked. So, you know, and that was me, and I carried on that. That was my life as a teenager and everything else. I joined the Merchant Navy at 16. I got thrown out of the Merchant Navy for robbing the NAFI. My sin at that time was I got caught. You know, I didn't consider it wrong. What was wrong was getting caught, you know, so dishonourable discharge and all that stuff, you know. So, a really good guy, shaped by my environment. So, as I say, it was all a little bit chaotic. And so then, I think my mother actually made a pretty good choice in sort of 76. She decided to leave this gangster and make a fresh start, move to Liverpool, and then I ended up moving to Liverpool. So fast forward on a little bit, I then asked the girl next door to go out on a date, because I didn't have anybody to go. I'd joined the TA by this time. I didn't have anybody to go to a function with. Knocked on the door the day before, she said yes, and I took her out. Now this girl went to church, and she said, if you want to see me more, you will have to come to church with me on a Sunday. So I was fairly relaxed about that. Didn't think I'd never had a relationship with God. Never thought about God, because God wouldn't. So I went to church on a Sunday night because I was in the TA, and because I was in the TA on a Sunday night, I would go normally half drunk, because that's what you did in the TA, because beer was really cheap because you didn't pay tax on it, and beer was mainly tax. So I would go there half cut most Monday nights to a small fellowship, no bigger than this, but the people they were all very old actually. They were all in their 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, gosh, but they were just lovely people. And eventually, bit by bit, I started looking at the Bible, asking questions, going off and trying to understand who this God was and why. And eventually, I got to a point where I made a choice, and that choice was to follow Jesus. And I have to say, I'd love to say it was great, and the last 40 years have been an absolute blast, and it was really, really easy. The reality is, it wasn't really, really easy, and the first 6 months in particular, making the adjustment from this chaotic life. I'd only drank and smoked and swore and stole and everything. So this was a life that was completely opposite from the life that I knew, and I'd known. And my family were a little bit, what's going on? He's going a bit weird. So it was a bit of a hard